Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah. Yes, Karthik.
Some reason I didn't notice that recording is not started. So let me quickly give an overview of what we're going to learn today. We're going to start learning about the looping statements, right? For loop, while, and do while, and how to use continue and break statements. We are in day 19. So before we go into learning this concept, we are going to talk about what is a looping statements in Java. Basically, why do we need that? And we are going to talk about different types of looping, like for loop and while and do while. And also we are going to learn about how to use continue and break statements in Java, and when to choose for loop and when to choose while loop, right? And also we are going to learn about advanced for loop or enhanced for loop, or people will say like for each in Java. All represents the same. So when we're going to start this one, so we are going to talk about in two part of the classes today. So in the first part, we are going to try with all the four data types, looping statements, which is something like for and while. So for that, what I'm trying to do here is first we learn about like what is looping statement. Let's say you have like employee database or more than one record. If you want to perform the same operation, then you don't need to do for each record the same thing. Instead, what you can do, you can go for a looping statement, and then you can do that. The sample example is something like let's say you have a customer database in the bank, and let's say you have like 1 million customers, and if you want to say some happy new year to the customer, right? You can't do sys out of happy new year for each customer like that separately, right? Instead, what you can do for loop, you can use it to iterate all the customers data and take that, and then you can call some method where you notify the mistakes. So the general syntax for loop is for initialization, then condition, then updation. So the logic how it works here is for initialization, then boolean expression, then updation, right? So which means first it will check for the condition, the initialization of the variable, and then it will going to check this condition. If the condition is true, then it will go and execute the inside the for loop. If the condition is false, it will come and execute outside of the for loop. And once it executes inside the for loop, it is going to update that variable. So the way how it works is, if you guys see here, for initialization, then semicolon, then condition, semicolon, then updation, isn't it? So within this for loop, whatever you want to write it, you can put it in this block, within the for loop block. And if you see here, when you say for initialization, you are going to initialize a variable, and then whatever the variable you are initializing, it is going to check the condition, whether it is true or not. If this condition can be true or not, right? If it is true, then it will go inside this for loop, which is 2.1. If the condition is false, it will come out of the for loop, which is 2.2. Once it goes inside this for loop, then it is going to perform this updation of the variable, right? And then once it is updation is done, then again it is going to check this condition. So we want to know till what point we want to run the execution, right? Let's say you have 1 million customers, whether you want to do it for all the 1 million customers, or let's say you want to do only for 100 records from the customer database, right? You can do that. You can have a granular level control over the for loop. So for that, what I'm trying to do here is I'm creating like 4 classes for our today's class. Basically, here I'm going to start by having a for loop class, while loop, and do while. There are 3 types of for loops we have in Java. We can use it. So before we get started, anyone have any questions regarding the for loops or anything? Any specific questions we have? I think we can continue, right? Okay. So I'm creating this for loop from the scratch. So as I said, the syntax for loop is nothing but for initialization. Initialization is nothing but I'm trying to initialize a value or a variable with some value. Let's say int I equal to 0, right? Which means the variable I will have the value 0, and then I want to do some condition check, right? Let's say I less than 3. This is our condition check, right? Then I want to increment that variable. It's nothing but I plus plus. It's nothing but you are going to say I plus plus is nothing but I equal to I plus 1, which means the value of I will be incremented to 1. Then I'm going to say sys out the value of I want to print it. Then outside of the for loop, I want to say this, what will be the output outside for loop. Okay, now if you go and run this program, you guys see here we're getting output of 0, 1, 2. First, we will go through with the simple syntax wise, and then I want to show you guys how you can use this looping statements with respect to some banking application or some scenario. I want to show you guys. Okay, so what we did here for int I equal to 0. So now the variable I is having a value of 0. Then it is going to check this condition 0 less than 3. Yes, it will immediately come inside this line number 9. It is executing this line. So it is trying to print the value of I. Now the value of I is 0. And after this line number 9 get executed, it is going to update, do this updation, I plus plus. So now the value of I becomes 1. Now after it does the updation, it is going to check this condition again. 1 less than 3. Yes. So again printing, the value is 1. Again it is going to update. Okay, now the value becomes 2. 2 less than 3. Yes. So it is going to print this as 2. Then now 2 is going to increment to. Now the 2 has been incremented to 3. Right? So now 3 less than 3, it is checking this condition. So 3 less than 3 is false. So that is where it stopped printing as 3 and then it is printing outside the for loop. Is it clear for you guys? All of you? The for loop in general.
Yes, Karthik.
Right? Perfect. You understand the flow, how it works, right? First one it will do this one. Only one time only it will do insertion. And then every time whenever we want to run the loop, it will do condition check. If the condition is passed, then it will go inside. If the condition is failed, it will come out of the loop. Whenever it completes the flow or whatever the blocks for loop, it will do this operation. Then again it will do the condition check. Then it will do based on what parts. So this is how the for loop works. Okay, this is very basic syntax, or I can say in general, right? So if you guys see here, the same thing I explained here. So int I equal to 0, I less than 5, I plus plus. So first it will do this initialization. Then if the condition, it will do the condition check number 2. If the condition is passed, it will go here 3, right? Because 0 is less than 5. So it will print 0, isn't it? Then since it is done with this inside, then it's going to update the 4. Then after update, it will check this condition again. So 5, then again 6, then 7, then 8, then inside, then again updation. Like that it will do. So till what point you want to run that execution, you have to do it by the help of this expression controller. You have the control here. Okay. So the other way of doing here is, let's say the other syntax, you guys might not know that, even if someone asking you also use the other. Okay. So this is one way of writing for loop. Okay. The other way of writing the same for loop is, so what I did here is, for I said int I is equal to 0, I less than 3, but I plus plus. Isn't it? That is what I wrote. Right? Then sys of I. Okay. Let's see whether we're getting same. Okay, 0, 1. The other way of doing here is, you can also make this initialization outside of for loop. That is also possible. If you guys run the same program, you will get the same 0, 1, 2. Okay, it is another way of writing the for loop. They may be asking whether this will throw compile and this works or not. So it will work. Okay, so there is a third way of doing for loop also. What you can do, even this condition checks also, you can take it from here. What will happen if you take this condition from here? Anyone have any idea? I'm saying int I equal to 0, semicolon, semicolon, I plus plus, then I'm printing a value of I. What will be the output? In this, yes. Okay, let me go and run this program. You guys see here, printing like anything, right? It's infinite loop. You guys see here, keep on increasing the heap memory, but actually it is keep on running. It's called infinite loop. It is never going to end. The developer should not write any program in any time, in any place, a placeholder for infinite loops. Okay, that will fill that application forever. So what we should do here is, if you see somewhere like this, even in OSCE, this will work, which means that this will compile, this will run, but you will see infinite output, right? Because you are not putting any condition, you are not saying where it has to stop, right? That is what I said. Based on this condition, it is going to check go inside or outside the for loop. So here you have removed the condition. right? That is why it is printing the further. So what you have to do, if the value of I, let's say equal to let's say 5, then what you can do, you can break it. We will see what is break and how this works with respect to far and wide. Just assume that you want to break it. Break it means just break the flow. Then the I value is 5. As simple as that. Right? Let's print this. See? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When the value of the I becomes 5, it is not running. Right? It breaks means it comes out in for loop. Okay, so this is the beauty of using different types of syntax for writing for loops. So there are 3 ways that you can write it. Okay, so in general, when I say for loop, you can write like this: for int I equal to 0, I less than 5, I plus plus, which means it is going to start from 0 and finish till 4, isn't it? And similarly, you can do this second way of writing. If you can remove this sensation here inside the for loop to outside. Then third way is you can also remove this condition from here. If you remove this condition, it will go for infinite for loops, right? And if you want to stop this infinite for loop, you can put the break on particular condition. You can put whatever the logic you want. Let's say you can say I is equal to 5, or you can say I is greater than 5, whatever you want. Whenever this condition is satisfied, then this for loop is going to begin. So this is all about like for loop. Anyone have any question before we go to while loop with respect to for loop? We will see the advanced for loop by end of this class, but I just want to make sure that you please understand the for loop very clearly before we go to while loop.
I'm good, Karthik.
Okay. So now I want to do with while loop. So let's start about while loop syntax. How this while loop syntax is. So we have while and then boolean expression, and then what are the statements you want to execute. That's all, right? And another one is do while. We will see later. But while is nothing but, let's say you have an example here. Let's say int I equal to 10. While some condition you want to execute something. So I can say simply say like this. See, like say while I want to print something when this condition is matching, right? So this is also a condition, right? You guys know who is a result here in Java, isn't it? What will happen if I run this program? So I'm going to run this program. What will be the expected output of this particular one? So the logic works here is while this condition is true, it will execute this line. Then again we'll check whether this condition is true or not. Yes, true. We'll execute. So it will be infinite. See, hi, it is printing anything. That is start the program. So which means you have to provide a proper condition here. When you want to execute this piece of code, right? So you have to define the condition. You can say, let's say, similar to Java for loop, int I equal to 0. You can say when I is less than 3, then you can say I plus plus. I will show you guys how to convert from for loop to while loop and while loop to for loop. Okay. See, you are getting 3 times. Or you can say what is the I value, isn't it? Let's say I with I. See, 0, 1, 2, 3 times you got 20. The way how it works is, now first thing is in line number 6, you are initializing the value of I as 0, and then you are going to do the condition check, right? While this condition is satisfied, then go and execute inside this while loop. After that, if the condition is not satisfied, go and write or execute outside of the while loop, right? So I'm going to say sysout outside while loop. Okay, let me go and run this. So what happened here? Only one time the value got initialized, then every time it is going to check this condition, and every time it is going to increment whenever the code control goes inside this flow, right? So now the value of I equal to 0, so it is checking, okay, 0 less than 3, yes, true. So true means go inside. So it printed this one, which means with value I 0, right? Then it got implemented I plus plus. When I say I plus plus, it means I got implemented to I equal to I plus 1, isn't it? So that is how this while loop got executed. And whenever this condition is not satisfied, let's say I is becoming 2 and then 3. When the I value becomes 3, 3 less than 3 is false. then immediately it won't go inside. Then the control comes out of this while loop, then it brings the line number 11, which is outside of while loop. This is simple logic of doing a while loop. Anyone have any question with respect to while loop? I will show you some example where you can start from real-time scenario. First I want to make you guys understand the syntax, right? So then we will go with the real-time example. So when I say int I equal to 10, where while I is greater than 5, then sys out of I, then I minus 1. You can do any condition you want. So basically, the logic is you're initializing here, you're checking the condition, you want to execute the piece of code, and you have to control it, right, by using some operation, right? So basically, this is how it works with respect to while statement. Okay, so if you guys see here, the same thing I have executed. Okay. Now let's get into the do while. There is another way of doing everything, which is nothing but do while. So before we get into do while, I want to tell you one more thing. If you guys notice here, whatever we did here, the same thing we did here, isn't it? With this one. You guys notice this one? Whatever we did here, the for loop also we did the same thing, isn't it? What we did here is same, isn't it? What is the output of this one? 0, 1 to outside for loop. What is the output of this one? 0, 1 to outside while loop. So if you guys notice very closely, we're saying int I equal to 0, which is nothing but same as here, int I equal to 0 here. Whatever the condition you're using here inside the for loop, I less than 3, the same condition you're checking here. Okay, whatever the updation you're doing here, the same updation you're doing here. So which means a for loop can be easily converted to a while loop, and while loop can be easily converted to a for loop. By end of this class, you will learn about when you have to go for for loop and while loop. Based on that, you will be choosing which one you want to use it in your real-time program. Okay. Now let's get into the do while. So do while means nothing but from the name itself, it is telling first do it. Do the set of statements. Then check my condition. While this is true, then again do it. Whatever you want. So this is syntax. Do this, the set of code, the set of statements. Then check this condition. What happens here? In case of while, you check the condition first. Only if the condition is satisfied, then it is executing this piece of code, isn't it? But in case of do while, it doesn't matter whether the condition is satisfied or not. First do it, then check the condition. If the condition is satisfied, again do that. As long as the condition is satisfied, then do it again and again. But very first time, it won't check the condition. Blindly it will do it. Then check the condition. Then second time onwards, it will check the condition, then do it. Check the condition, do it. Okay. So the logic here is, if you guys see here the syntax, do while. Do that first while the condition, right? Let's say int I equal to 10, then do the stuff, right? Whatever I want to print it. Then while the condition check, right? So how it works right then. So let's say I'm going to say do sys out of, let's say something of 5. Okay. I'm just simply saying while I'm giving some condition, because if you don't give the condition, or even if you don't give this while, it will throw comparator error. So which means whenever you go for do while statements in Java, always it is mandatory to provide a condition. Okay. If you guys see somewhere a code like this, it means like it will throw comparator error, saying that you have to provide a while condition. Okay. So when I say while condition, you have to use some condition, right? So here int I is equal to 5. Okay. Now I'm going to say I less than 5. What will happen? Anyone have any idea? When this program gets executed, what will be the output? I'm declaring variable I equal to 5, then do this, then check this condition, I less than 5. And then I want it to execute again, line number 5, till here. What will happen here?
Will print.
Sorry?
It will print only once, right? We haven't incremented anything.
Okay.
Is it like that?
It will print first time here.
Oh, sorry.
Then it will check the condition. It will again execute this one only if its condition is satisfied. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
It will print only once. Okay. So this is correct. First it will check, it won't check the condition, it will simply print this or execute this do block, and then it will check this condition. If this condition is not satisfied, it won't do anything. Only if the condition is satisfied, it will do this. Okay, you're right. Actually, your answer is correct. I just want to tell you how this line by line is going to execute. Yeah, can we go on to the actual code? How the do while works? You can do condition here. Like let's say you want to increment this value. Okay, let's say instead of I, you can simply say the value of I value, right? So now the I value is 5, so it will print it as 5. Now what you can do, you're checking 5 is less than 5. No, right? Let's say you are checking, let's say I is greater than 5. What will happen now? What will the output?
The same, only once it will print.
Okay, right. So assume that you are actually doing some operation or updation to the same I value. Let's say I plus plus. Okay, so I is equal to 5, then print it as 5. Then now in this line, I value equal to 5. When it execute this line, I value equal to 6, isn't it? Now 6 is greater than 5, isn't it? True. It will go and execute again. So now I value becomes 6. You guys got it? Now I is 6 here, right? Now it is going to check this condition. Okay, 6 is greater than 5. Yes, true. As long as the while is true, it won't execute again do, right? This piece of code. Now the value of I equal to 6, right? Here. Now when it says I plus plus, the value becomes 7. Let me run this. But what is your guess on this? Okay.
Infinite.
Infinite. You're right. Because this condition is not going to satisfy getting false at all, right? So it's always better to keep always a break when you have to get out of this loop. Okay, so we should not write any program with infinite loops. That's it. So this is a basic syntax about do while. We will go through about break and continue in the next part of the class. Now let me give you one idea where we can use for loop and everything in start. Okay, let me comment everything in all the classes, whatever I written. Now I will give you some practical example where you will be using this one. Simple example. I don't want to again learn just by I. Let's assume that you are having a class in Java in your project. Okay. The purpose of the class is something dealing with some customer database or some dealing with some banking application. So the requirement is you have 2 customers in your table having 5 transactions each. Let's say first customer with 5 transactions, second customer with 5 transactions, right? Now someone wants you to go and iterate or to know, give me list of customers and list of transactions. Okay. So before we get into inner for loops, first I will tell you how to get the list of customers in the database, right? So which means let's say int first is equal to 2. You have 2 customers, or you can say the first customer is 1, right? What you can do, you have to iterate. right? So for you already provided here in customer equal to 1, right? So now the customer value is 1. For the customer, you have to check, then you have to stop. So customer is less than 3, then customer plus plus, you want to implement the customer and say that this is so. You can say I am customer 1, 2, 3 like that, isn't it? Now if I run this program, you are going to get I am customer 1, I am customer 2, isn't it? So this is how you have to write your logic based on how many people are there. So if you don't have list how many customers are there, so for that you have to first get the list of customers. The way what you can do here is you can put an array, integer array of customers. I can rewrite this program differently. Integer array of customers is equal to how to create an array in Java like this. Okay, let's say 1, 2. There are 2 customers in your database, right? For these customers, you want to use your for loop by having initialization. You already have, isn't it? You already have this values, right? So what you can do then, till what records you have to run. You can say I value less than customer dot length, array dot length, then I plus plus, isn't it? Now you can say the same thing here. If you don't know exact customers, how many people are there or what not, right? You can put it in array and then you can. Okay, let's get connect back in the next class, guys. Thanks. Okay, you can see everyone back. So let's continue with the class. So what we are doing here is we have integer array of customers with like 1 and 2. For each customer, I want to do some operation. So I'm going to say I want to iterate on that loop, right? I have to loop this for the array, which means still the last record, which means 1 and 2, right? So here I'm not defining, let's say the condition should be like only for 2 customers or 3 customers. What I'm trying to do here is I'm doing dynamically, I'm going to check what is the length. Till the length of this array, I have to loop it, right? Now let's print this. This should be value of I, because we are updating the value of I only. So I am customer 1. Why it printed only 1? Any idea? So what happens here? The value of I equal to 1, then it is checking this condition, right? So I less than customer dot length. What is the customer dot length? What is array length? 2, right? Array index starts from 0, but the length is starts from 1. So the length of this array is nothing but 2. If you guys want to know that, you can simply print this customer dot length. Right? It's simple. So you see that the length of the array is 2. So what happens here? The value of I equal to 1 here, and 1 is checked against 2. Yes, 1 is less than 2. So it printed here with 1. Then it got incremented to 2. So 2 less than 2. No, isn't it? So what you have to do is, if you want to do this operation, fill all the records in the customer, whatever the array, you have to do equal to till the last element, isn't it? Now you see 1 and 2, both customers are able to retrieve. Okay, the same thing we are going to implement in the while loop for the same list of customers in a bank. So what you can do, simply you can convert this for loop into a while loop, isn't it? So what you can do here, first you can say int the customer is equal to 1, isn't it? Then while loop, you are going to do some condition here, and then you want to print it, isn't it? So what you can do, I will say the same thing. Let's say I'm a customer 1 or 2, whatever, right? While the customer is less than 3, then print this, but you have to increment the customer, isn't it? Whatever you have used here in this for loop, you are saying customer is equal to 1, okay, customer is equal to 1, right? Initialization happens here, and whatever the logic you are doing here for taking the condition check, the Boolean expression you are doing here, isn't it? And whatever the operation you are doing here, the for loop, you are doing the same thing here. Let me go and run this program now. You will see. Okay, okay. See, I'm getting the same output. So what I did here, when someone asks you to go and do some exercise or do in your program, saying that you want to iterate the list of records, either you can go for loop by using this syntax, or you can go to while loop by using syntax. Okay, same thing. If you want to do the same thing in do while, so I want to print something or I want to do something irrespective of what are the conditions it matches or not. Okay, then I can go for do while. What does it mean? So do means first do it, then checks the condition, and if the condition is matching, again do the same steps, whatever the statements inside do block, right? But if you guys notice here, with respect to do while and while loop will execute only when the conditions matches, but do while executes the list of statements within do for sure at least once in this program, then it will check the condition of while. You guys got the difference between do while and while? While means it will execute only when the conditions matches. Do while means at least once it will run this execute this piece of code, even though the condition is not matching. So let's say in customer equal to 1, right? I want to print the list of customers, how many customers I have, right? Let's say 2 customers I have, right? So I want to print that condition. So how you can do that? First it will say when customer is 1, then I'm going to check the condition whether the customer is less than 3 or not. What it will do, as per the logic flow, first it will initialize this value of customer as 1, then it will execute this piece of code saying that I am customer 1, then it will do this condition customer less than 3, right? So yes, value of I is customer is what? 1 less than 3, 2, then it will go and execute this way, do. But if you guys notice here, this customer is always be 1. You are not incrementing and you are not decrementing, isn't it? When I run this program, what will the output? Infinite loop, isn't it? So how you can do only for 2 customers? Any idea? Any logical way of implementing here? You have customer value 1 and you are printing it first, and then you are printing it, checking the condition. Okay, 1 is less than 3. Yes, print it.
Customer plus 2.
Yeah, like this. Perfect. You can do this for loop, while loop, and do while in any way, in any program. Okay, based on the requirement. Let's say if someone wants you to print first 100 numbers, out of 100 numbers, I want to print only the odd number, even whatnot. Okay, we can do a lot of things within this. Okay, so I can say simply in j is equal to 100. If someone asks you to print list of 100 records, only odd number or even, right? What you can do, let's say int j equal to 0, then j less than 100, then don't put the condition here. So what you can do, sys out of j. Okay, this will be a infinite loop. But what you have to do here is j equal to j plus 2, isn't it? What will happen here? First j value is 0. Okay, j equal to 0. So then if you check this condition, right? Okay, 0 less than 100. If you print first value 0, then it will going to increment j by 2, isn't it? If you run this program, see, you're getting all the even numbers 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, like that. It's all about the way how you're going to implement. As simple you can implement if someone asks you in Java, into your whatever you want. Okay, guys, this is all about like for loop, while, and do while. Let's get into sites. What we have. So I hope you guys understood the basic concept about for loop, while loop, and do while with respect to syntax and the way how it is going to execute step by step, isn't it? Is it clear for you guys? Anyone have any question before I get into break and continue settings? No questions? Okay, good.
No, Karthik.
Now we are getting into another interesting topic. Okay, I will give you with a simple example. Here also I want to show you guys how this real-time example is. So now you have bank customer, let's say 2 people, right? And transactions, 10 transactions each. Someone reported saying that, in my bank, when I did some transaction, it got failed. Okay. And now you have to iterate those customers and then you have to get those transactions first. All the 10 transactions for each. How you can do that with respect to for loop? The requirement is we have some customer, let's say 2 people, and they're giving, okay, there are 2 customers you have to iterate, and each customer is having 10 transactions, and you want to iterate and get all those 10 transactions of each customer. How you can do that? Okay, how you can simply do that is, if customer is equal to 1, then transactions equal to 1. Okay, then go for loop, isn't it? You want to implement using for loop, right? So now you have already defined this customer equal to 1. So simply you can put 1. Then you have to check how many customers you have. So customer less than 3. Till 2 customers you have to execute, isn't it? So you put the condition. After you check this condition, what you want to do? You want to get the transaction of that particular customer. So how you can do? Another for loop, inside this for loop, you can say, okay, transaction starts from 1, and then when the transactions less than 11, right? Then you have to implement the transactions. Okay? Only then you will be able to get the next transactions, isn't it? Okay, you can see why it is still the result is yes. Okay, no problem. Oh, yes, I prefer this. This is another way of doing this. Okay, so what I did here, for each records in this customer up to 3, I'm going to do this part. Then what I should do? I have to increment for the next customer, isn't it? So customer plus this. Is it clear for you guys? Or tell me I can repeat it again. If you guys are getting confused, I will simply rearrange in this way. Just I'm rearranging. What I'm trying to do here is, for in customer is equal to 1. So for the first customer, I'm going to check, okay, customer is less than 3, which means I want to print only for 2 customers, isn't it? Then I want to get all the transactions. Let's say 10 transactions they have. Transaction 1 till 10, I want to get it. So what I can do here, this is how I can print I am customer. What is the customer value? I am the customer 1, then and transaction is QRX, isn't it? Can we go and run this program? What happened here? I am the customer 1. You can see this into space. Yeah, I am customer 1 and transactions 1. and customer 1 transactions 2. So here you are getting first customer all the transactions 1 to 10. Here you are getting second customer all the transactions 1 to 10. What did I did here is first I'm iterating each customer. For each customer I am doing their transactions. Is it clear for you guys, or you want me to go through again?
All good, Karthik.
Assume that the requirement says that okay, each customer you are having 10 transactions, but I want only 5 transactions out of 10. How you can implement? Very simple. So which means I want to get the transaction of each customer that I want to get only 5, which means this for loop should run only
Transaction.
isn't it? This for loop should run
Transaction less than 6 you will make.
yeah, you can say if this transaction number is greater than 6, which means the transaction value will be 5, right? When this condition is satisfied, you want to break it. You don't want to execute the remaining other transactions, right? Let me run this program. Yeah, you see here, we are getting 7 transactions for each customer. Oh, because I want to get only 5. Yeah, you see here, out of 10 transactions, I'm getting only 5 because I'm breaking it. Whenever I say break, which means this particular execution, the existing or enclosed, the loop will be getting out of. What does it mean? So the logic works like this. Okay, for first customer, it is checking this condition. Okay, satisfied. Then it is going to execute this for loop first. Only these loops are getting out of. Only when line number 62 is getting executed, only then it is going to do this operation, isn't it? That is what we are seeing in the simple syntax. So it is going to execute this for loop. For the first customer, it is going to execute from transaction 1 to 10, but we are having one break saying that if the transaction is greater than 4. So whenever the transaction becomes 5, right, or greater than 4, right, then it will break. Break means don't do this for loop anymore for that particular transaction, right? That is what it means. So it is actually stopping only this execution, only this one. It didn't stop to execute for the next execution, for the next customer, or yeah, for the next customer, isn't it? So what happens? The moment it reaches this condition satisfied, it got break. Break means it came out of this for loop, and now the control is in line number 63. Now, because of 63, it is going and update this particular customer to value to 2. Now 2 is less than 3. Yes, true. Again, it executes the second customer. That is how this break actually works with respect to for loop. Is this clear on this one? The flow. You guys see here, the concept of break is to come out of the current enclosed loop. Okay, you can use this break with respect to for loop, while loop, do while, and also in switch case statements. Okay, so this is how the break works with respect to for loop. Whenever you have multiple for loops, if you want to get out of the for loop for some reason, you can put a break, and then it will come out of the particular inner for loop, and outer for loop will still works. The same here. For int I equal to 0, I less than 3, I plus plus. Int j equal to 0, j less than 3, I plus plus. And you are running some logic here, and you are putting some condition. On based on this condition, you want to break it. Then if you see 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 2, then 1, 1, 1, 0, 1, 2, isn't it? So this is how actually it works. Anyone have any question regarding this break? How to apply the break in respect to for loop? Are you guys clear about the break statements in for loop? Okay. Let me go to the while loop.
Yes, Karthik.
Okay. So let's say I want to print the same thing, right? Let's say I want to print for when the customer value is less than 10, which means this is going to run 10 times, right? 1 to 9. So which means it is going to run for 10 times. Okay, 1 to 10. So which means it is going to execute this particular piece of code for 10 times. But for some reason, if you want to break it, let's say I want to break out of 10 customers, if you want to break, if the customer value is equal to let's say 8, then I want to break it. You guys know in Java, when you have only one statements, either you can enclose with the closing bracket or without. This is not this is optional. It is not mandatory. Let me see what you guys see here. The moment this condition is satisfied, when I say break, it means this looping has been ended. That is why you are seeing only 1 to 7. This is how you can use break with respect to while statement or while loops. What I meant here is it is not mandatory to give the failure braces if you are writing only one to 7. See the same output with or without the failure braces. That's all I mean. You guys clear with this one? Break with respect to while. How to use the break statement with respect to while loop. Maybe you guys try to start coding it so you'll understand how this flow works in better way. But this is how the logic works. Okay, you are going to break the flow by giving some condition. Based on some condition, you want to break it. It's all about requirement. Right? Based on the requirement, you can implement whichever the way how you want. This is how you can actually break it. I remember like I was giving you printing the 100 numbers, right? Where was it? This one. Even though you're giving, let's say, 100 records, right? But if you want to break it, let's say when the I value becomes 50, which means it will print only the even number from 1 to 50, isn't it? So you can use break with respect to while like this. Similarly, you can use the break with respect to do while also. If the customer value, if the customer value is equal to, let's say 2, then break it. What does it mean? It will print only one customer, isn't it? See, it will do only one customer. Because when the customer has been implemented to 2, it checks this one. Then, since we say break, so it comes out of this loop in itself. Which means like this while is not going to get executed. Let me quickly do one thing. First, I will run this program to debug mode. So you guys will get how it actually works. So let me run this program in debug mode. You guys see here the execution flow. So first it is going to execute for first loop, condition satisfied. So get inside here. Then it is going to check this condition transaction 1 and then check this condition transaction 1 is less than 11. Yes. So it execute this line number 58 and it is checking line number 59. Okay. Transaction 1 is greater than 4. Yes. So again it executing this for loop, inside for loop. Yes. Okay. It's satisfied. So again it is going to check this condition. Yes. Now again you can see here it will execute this for loop as long as this condition is going to break, which means like transaction is going to be greater than 4. Now if you say transaction is 5, the value of transaction is 5. Now it is going to execute line number 59. So when it is going to execute this line number 59, it is going to check 5 is greater than 4. Yes. Right? So break it. Once you get break, if you guys see here, it came out of this for loop, but the control is back in 55, isn't it? Now if you see, again it executing for the second customer. If you see customer value is incremented to 2. Now it is going to increment inside transaction 1. You guys see here, customer is still 2, transactions keep on incrementing. Here. See, transactions 3, the same second customer, transactions 4, transactions 5. You guys can notice here as well as here, the value is highlighted here. Now the transactions 5, right? Now it is we get into the break. Now it's going to come out of this for loop. Now this is going to check this customer. Customer value is 3 now, right? Now when it's going to execute, the customer is 2 now. Now it is going to execute the line number 55. So what it will do is first it will do this updation. The customer value will become 3 when I'm going to execute. The moment it will check this condition is false, it is going to come out of the loop. See, it came out of the loop. This is how this for loop works. Hope you guys have understood now in better way, isn't it? How the inner for loop works with respect to break. Anyone have any question? I think switch case already we have demonstrated earlier, isn't it? So switch case is not a looping statement in Java. It is a control flow statement. The reason why I'm referencing the switch concept here is the break keyword we can use with respect to switch. If you guys want to refresh it again. So you have a switch keyword and case keyword. Let's say if you have string s equal to register, some string value we have, and if you want to check this value, okay, switch yes, then case. So case means it is going to check exactly what is this value registered. So if this case is matching with this one, it is going to execute that piece of code. Then you're going to use a break. If you don't use a break, it means like it is going to execute all the cases. If none of the cases are matching, only then it is going to execute the default, right? If something is matching, then if you break it, then it is going to get out of the switch. So break is basically breaking the current execution flow, the looping flow. Okay. So here this case is nothing but which is associated with the switch, right? As long as the switch is s equal to register, it is going to execute. If you don't understand. See, you're having value of s is register. You have a case of red, so it is not matching. Black is not matching. Register is matching, isn't it? But it is a different string, isn't it? That is the reason it didn't go into this one. I think we want to test this one last time in the class, right? That is the reason it went into default, where it printed this. So basically, you have to use break in all the cases so that your logic will be correct, and you can use break with respect to for loop, while loop, and do while. Now we will quickly go through what is the next one is continue statement, continue keyword. So always people will get confused between break and continue. I will get clarified in the last two steps. Okay. So continue statement is similar to break, but it stops only the execution of the current statement and return to the next statement. What does it mean? Let me go to the same for loop what we have. So here what we are trying to do for each customer, we are trying to do all the transactions, only 5 transactions. Even though they have 10 transactions, we are doing only for 5. What will happen if I say this out of, let's say something called after break, the value of transaction. If you don't understand, you guys see here for the customer 1, after break 1, 2, 3, 4, isn't it? Then when the second customer comes, then again 1, 2, 3, isn't it? So what does it mean? I'm actually breaking it here. Whenever I say break, it comes out of this for loop. But still, this piece of code was executed, isn't it? You guys notice here? So let me execute this flow again. Run this in data. Okay, let me execute this. Okay. So okay, inside for loop. Okay, printing this one. So transaction, this is condition string after it's failing. So it will go. It executes line number 62, isn't it? Then it will execute the same way. Line number 62 is getting executed every time this for loop runs. Meaning, as long as see when the break has been executed, right? When this condition is satisfied, when the break has been executed, this piece of code was not executed, isn't it? You guys see here after break 4, it didn't execute, isn't it? Now you see now it's executing for customer 2. You can see here customer value, transaction value. Keep on changing the transaction value. Right? Now, when the customer value, the transaction value is 4, it executes. Now the transaction value is getting increased to 5. So 5 is less than 5, yes. going to execute this line. Yes. Now it's going inside this for loop. Sorry, if loop. You see, now it's going to break it. Once the moment it did break, it is not going to execute this line number 62, isn't it? You guys notice this one, right? So this is with respect to break. Now let me go and change it to continue. What will happen if I do continue here? Let me stop. Execute this code. Don't run the same program in debug mode. I want to erase the about break and continue. So first customer, okay. Customer value 1, transaction 1. Okay. So condition is not matching. So it execute line number 62. All good. So we will see when the transaction value becomes 5. Now transaction value is what? 4. Right? So it executes. Now what will happen? Now if I execute it, it is going to increment the value of transaction to 5, isn't it? So the moment it is going to 5, it is going to check here. 5 is greater than 4, yes. So if you guys see here, notice very closely, we will see what happens. See what happens? We didn't came out of this for loop. It simply rejects to execute this piece of code, isn't it? But still the control is still with respect to 57. If it is break, it comes out of this for loop, inner loop, and the control came back to line number 55 to take the next customer. But here what happened? Whenever you say continue, it won't execute the remaining piece of code in this for loop or whatever the enclosed loop. Instead, it will go to the next iteration, but it won't get out of this for loop. You guys are clear about this one, or still you guys are confused? You guys see here, it's going inside the continue, but it is not printing this line number 62. But it will keep on executing the same for loop. It means it is not coming out of the for loop. It will simply stops executing the remaining piece of code, and it will start iterating the next record in the same iteration in the for loop. Not sure if you guys represent clear, or you guys want to go through it again with respect to break and continue. You can see here, it stops only the execution of the current statement and return to the next iteration. It won't come out of this for loop. If you do break, it comes out of this for loop. It will start executing the next element in this for loop, outer for loop, isn't it? But whenever you say continue, it means it won't come out of this for loop. Instead, it will execute the next record in the same for loop, but it won't execute the remaining piece of code in this for loop. So a typical example we can say, let's say you have 2 customers, and then you are iterating those 2 customers, or let's say you have 5 customers. Out of those 5 customers, you want to say hi to only 3 customers, and the 4th customer you don't want to say hi. What you can do here, the moment you see this customer is 4, when you say continue, which means this piece of code is not going to get executed, right? Here you can say hi customer 4, right? But the 4th customer is not going to execute this piece of code. What it will do, it will simply neglect the 4th customer, this line of code, and it will take the 5th customer and it will say hi. Is it confusing? I want to get a feedback from this. I understand. Let me know if you guys want to do it one more time. You can do that. Guys, is it clear for you, or still need more clarification?
It is clear, Karthik.
Yeah. Okay. Very good.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can use with respect to for loop, while loop, and do while. Also, all what's the same way. But the only thing is, you have to understand that whenever you use continue, it is not going to come out of the loop. Instead, it is not going to execute the remaining piece of code for the particular loop, and it will do iterating the next element. So this is all about continue statement. Okay, we have to make sure when we have to use break, when we have to use continue. The typical example, as I mentioned, right? Let's say you want to execute a piece of code, and but you don't want to execute the remaining piece of code, right? If you don't want to execute the remaining set of code, then you can go for continue, and you can continue with the next element, the same iteration, right? But if you want to completely break out of that loop, then you can use break. The name is self-explanatory, but people will get confused between continue and break when they interview ask or even in program. So it should be very, very, we have to be very careful in applying this continue and break. Okay. So now we are getting into when to choose loop, for loop and while loop. So for loop and while loop works the same way. There's no difference. I can convert a for loop into while loop. I can convert vice versa. Okay. If you guys see here, for can behave like while. While true, do this. The same thing here. For semicolon semicolon, do this. What is it? Both are like infinite loops, isn't it? In with respect to while and for. Similarly, the while can behave like for. Let's say int x equal to 0, while x is less than 10, x plus plus. The same thing you can do here with respect to for loop. For x equal to 0, x less than 10, x plus plus. So basically, for and while loop, we should have three parameters, which is nothing but initialization, condition, then updation. These three things should be there. Okay, so you can do it in a different way. This is syntax different. So both are true. So it's nothing like which is better than what, right? But as a developer, we have to consider some scenarios, the best option, which one you can use it. So we have looping, right, in let's say for and while. So with respect to for loop, when you can use for loop is best is for when you know ahead of time before you do the iteration, the number of iterations, how many iterations you are going to do it before ahead of time, you can simply go for loop. The reason is that here you are giving the number of times how you want to execute. Okay. In terms of while loop, if you don't know actually ahead of time how many times you are going to iterate, then you can go for while loop. Let me give you a practical example. Let's say there is a requirement. Let's say you have one file and you want to read the number of records in the file, and you want to iterate, and then you want to do some operation over there. But you don't know really how many records will be there in the file, right? How many lines will be there in the file. In a typical application, when you do the integration process, right, where you will be having some file and you will be reading each line by line and then doing some operation, right? So in this case, you don't know really how many number of lines will be there in the file. So you have to execute the same operation for all the lines in the file. So how you can do? When you say while, so how you will read the file? You will say file f is equal to new file of, do the file path, then file reader, then buffer reader. We have seen in previous videos, right, how to read a file. So while buffer reader br dot read line not equal to null, then you are going to read it, which means you are going to do the operation while that till the last line in the file, isn't it? There you don't know how many number of lines you will get it in the file. Then you can go for file while loop. If you have some operation where you know how many times you want to iterate, then you can easily go for loop. Is it clear for you guys when you can choose for and when you can go for while? Anyone have any question over here? Okay, let me quickly summarize the last part of today's class. It is nothing but enhanced for loop or advanced for loop. Basically, this is what we are using nowadays. So enhanced for loop or for each, whatever the people say, it has been introduced in Java 1.5. So all are same, right? So what I'm trying to do here is, instead of doing like this way, I can say, let's say int, or I can say the syntax is something like, you can say string this colon my list. What is this my list? I can go for list. I think we haven't covered about collections as of now, right? Let me start with like this. So you have an integer array, right? Integer array, my array is equal to, let's say you have values of, integer array means it will store only integers, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Then how I can write this in the else for loop? I want to iterate all the elements in this array. So I can say this. Then each element within this array I have to define, isn't it? Then I can define like colon. I can define some variable value, let's say I. Then of type what? Integer, right? This is how you have to write this. You guys understand this one? First you have to define this one. Then you are declaring this variable of each element of type integer. Then I'm going to say sysout of I. If I print this, it is going to print 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So here you are not mentioning what is a size or length. You are not checking anything. It will automatically check whatever all the elements in the particular list or array. It is going to check. It is going to iterate this entire array, integer array, and it is going to take each variable. Let's say I. The first time it is going to take this value I is equal to 1. Second time it is going to take I value as 2. Third time it is going to take I value 3. Maybe we will connect back within 2 minutes. We will summarize. We have just a lot of items today. Let's stop here and then we will connect back within 2 minutes. Yes. Thank you for joining back. Can you guys see my screen again? I want to summarize all the concepts because we have learned a lot of concepts today.
Yes.
We can cover before we end up today. You guys can understand this concept, advanced for loop. Is it clear or is it something or I can run
So a list of values we have to give into the array every time.
No, yeah. So what we're trying to do here is you are having some array. You have some array value. The requirement is that you want to print all the elements inside. How you can do here is you don't need to mention int I equal to 0, I less than my array dot length, and then just like that, right? Instead, what you can do,
yes,
you simply put this array name here and then semicolon, which means you are going to assign a value from this array into this variable I of type of what integer, right? Because it is going to throw integer. Right? So you're just defining what type of variable it is. Int I equal to 0 you have defined now. Same thing like you are saying integer. That's all. And semicolon my array means it is going to take I is going to take the value of each element from this array. It's nothing but the name of the object which you are trying to say. You can use array, you can use array list, anything you can do. You can say, let's say list of string is equal to new array list of okay. You can also we'll discuss more about list and array in coming videos, classes. But now just try to see I'm going to create one.
So Karthik.
Uh-huh.
So similarly, like for the integer array you have created 1 to 5. Similarly, list also I can create. So second syntax, whatever you have written is for list array basically.
Correct. So I created a list here, which is going to store only string. That is what this diamond operator means. Okay, you will see it. So I create simply one list of the array. It's array list I created like this. Okay. Now I want to say yes dot add of. Let's say I'm going to add some people here. Okay. I'm going to add some people here. This list. So let's say Sunday. Tuesday. Okay. So now so here what I'm trying to do here is I want to do the same thing. Right? I have some list which is having all these values in the list. Now I want to do the for loop. How we can do for? How you have to think here is for I want to iterate on what this list, right? Okay, we have to say this. Okay. Then of type what? This list is going to store what type? String. So string. Then space. Then how are you going to represent this one? Let's say you can say J. Then colon. So which means from this yes list, from this string list, yes, it is going to take the value as J. Now if you see this out of J, let's see output. See Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, this 20. Then tomorrow if someone adds something here, instead of let me say if you add something called Thursday, you don't need to update anything on your format. Automatically it's there. So this is like enhanced for loop. Basically, you don't need to define the length or size. You have to iterate if you want to iterate until last element inside that list. So when I say list, it is a kind of a collection. You can have list, you can have set, you can have map, anything you want, right? But logic here is how you are going to use this for loop syntax. You have to understand how you are going to iterate using that. That's all.
So Karthik, the way we have written this int array, my array equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So similar way, can't we create the string object string? Let's suppose string array, my array equal to in the curly braces Sunday, Monday, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Similar way.
Array, it's a my string array equal to array can declare like this.
Okay, we can do it. Okay.
This Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, right? Now what I want to do is I want to use for loop for what I want to do. I want to iterate in this one, right? So I want to say this one, then before the change column, I can store it, let's say some k variable, and then apply string. Okay, that's all. Inside, if I want to represent this one, it's simply say k. Inside some together, it is understand. Right? Our output will be within this together. It's Sunday and Monday. Tomorrow, if you add something here, within this array, let's say I'm adding within here. See, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Is it clear? Jason?
Yes.
How you can use it.
So, what are the scenarios or what can be the purpose of, segregating the string and list? I mean, in this, yeah. So here we can say that both are giving, similar kind of scenario we checked. But what can be the real life scenario, or where can we use list instead of string or vice
You're
versa?
asking about whether you can use this way or this way, isn't it?
Both the way we got the output same, right?
Yeah.
So my question is, what can be the scenario, real life scenario, or in execution, which we should use, either the string one or the list one?
Okay. So both are using. If you see the difference between line number 76 and line number 84 to 89, both we are actually storing string value, isn't it?
Yes.
Here also we are storing string value. Here also we are storing string value. So there is no difference in the data type which we are storing. The difference is how we are going to store it, whether you're using array or list. Okay. So when we go to collection framework, when you're going to talk about, we are going to learn about what is the difference between array and array list. Okay. So array is a size, basically. Okay. Where an array list is browser. We will be talking about when we get deeper into how we are going to. But the real time scenario, we always deal with array list or a number of other classes we have, like map, tree map, tree set, like that. Okay. So based on like the requirement, we'll be using it. But answer to your question, with respect to like array or array list, we will be using it mostly array list. The reason is that array list kind of a global array. Inside, you don't need to mention the size. But in terms of array, basically array is something like we'll be using it only if you are dealing with the number of records you're going to iterate. So array, it will create array with 16 or 10. Yeah, I will be explaining you detail when you go to collection basically. Let's say one simple example I can tell. Let's say you are writing your application and you are getting some uh, records from the database, okay, and you want to deal with that record. Let's say you have employee database and you are getting some 100 records in that, okay. So today when you are doing this JDBC connection, you're getting 100 records, and tomorrow you may be getting 150 records because database is getting data from some other logic, okay. So people are entering some are creating some employee records. So employee database, today you're seeing 100 records, tomorrow you'll be seeing 150 records. So whenever you are getting the SQL output of JDBC, let's say 100 or 150, if you want to iterate those 100 or 150, so typically what you can do, whatever the output you are getting it from the database, you can put it in a array list so that you can simply iterate that array list and then you can simply do whatever you want. So that is one of the practical examples that you can think. Even you can create one SQL, MySQL database with one table, can connect to the Java to that and then get it in there, and then you can iterate it using array list. Because whatever the data you're getting it from that database, if you want to do some operation, you can store it in collections, right? Based on what collection you want to use. In simple, I can say just use array list if you don't have any particular reason to use map or something. Let's say you're getting, let's say, 100 records. Out of 100 records, you want to perform some operation only on employee ID equal to 1, 2, 3. Then what you can do, you can go for a key value pair where you will be passing key as employee ID, name as Karthik, and then you can choose the logic over there and then you can implement it. But with respect to for loop, whatever the data structure you're using it, these we call it as data structures, right? How you are going to structure your data, that is called data structure, right? So this is the data, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is the data. How you're going to structure the data, how you're going to deal with the data is something with data structures, right? So whatever the data structure you have, if you want to iterate it using NS for loop, the syntax is that the logic here is for, you have to first define the data structure and then semicolon, then what is the data type it is going to show, and variable to iterate. That's all.
Okay, yeah,
Yes.
got it. Thank you. Yes.
Okay. Go like this. All the concepts to see. Then you guys can ask me questions. So we have seen a lot of concepts and lot of new concepts we have learned. So looping statement, for loop, while loop, and do while, and how to use this keywords continue and break, and when to choose what, right? For loop versus while loop. And also we have seen the last advanced for loop. So the syntax for loop is nothing but for initialization, then expression, the bool expression, and then updation. Then you can do this, right? Either you can do this way, like initialization happens inside the for statement, or you can put it outside. But make sure, like, if you have something like this, for simple without having any conditional break here, which means partial is infinite. Okay. So we have seen some examples, real-time examples with some customer, banking customers and their transactions with respect to for loop, while loop, and do while. Before that, we have seen about using by normal dealing of using integer value like I and j, right? For int I equal to 0, I less than 5. So I want to print from 0 to 4, like that. The same thing you can achieve it by taking this instance outside of for, putting outside the same output. The third one is, if you don't have the condition check, then it is going to be an infinite for loop. So how to avoid the infinite for loop is make sure that you are having a condition check for the for loop. Either you can put the condition here or you can put break statement here. So break means always it comes out of that for loop execution, right? So we have seen similarly a while loop. While is also another way of looking your records. So while doing expression, then you can execute the piece of code. So let's say if I equal to 10, while I greater than 5, then execute this piece of code. Which means whenever this condition is true, then go and execute this one. And then how you're going to start it? By making the updation of this particular variable. Similarly, you can do it with respect to do while. Do means do while is nothing but the same like while, but the difference is that it will for sure it will execute one time, at least one time, this piece of code, even though this condition is not true. But in case of while, if the condition is not true, it is not going to even execute even one time. Right? So based on our requirement, when we want to go for while and do while, it's based on the use case. We can choose it. But the logic and the syntax should be available. So we have taken some simple example while I condition like greater than 5, which means satisfied. So it is going to print it. So from 10 to 6, it printed. After that, when the I value is 5, 5 is greater than 5, no, false. So it didn't execute, which means this once this condition is failing, it comes out of this while loop. The other one is do while, which means like you want to do it first. Let's say system out of println, inside do I, which means I equal to 10. So for it will print the value of I equal to 10. And then I'm decrementing here, and then I'm checking it. Now only it is going to check this value, right? So this flow of execution, we should be well aware about it, so that like in our program, if someone have mentioned any issue with respect to anything, and if you narrow down the issue, basically if you think like there is an issue with the way how they handle the looping, then only if you know this flow, then you can able to identify the requests. That is very important. And we have seen the break, how to use the break, and what is the purpose of using break. The break is something to come out of the current enforced loop. Even you can have 100 loops, right, in your program, but if you use break, it will just come out of that particular execution, but it will still execute the remaining piece of code. Right? You can use break with respect to for loop, while loop, do while, even switch case statements. So switch case is not a looping area, but it is a control flow statements. With respect to break, I have just referenced here how to use switch case here. So the break statements with respect to for loop, you can use it here, so that like it will just simply comes out of this for loop execution line number 26 to 31, but it will still execute the line number 24 to 32. The typical example what we are seeing is you have 2 customers, you have 10 transactions for each customer, and you want to print only each customer's 5 transactions, but you want to print for both the customers. Then you can have outer for loop to iterate each customer, inner for loop to iterate the transactions, and you can put a break statement here. Condition. Let's say the transaction is greater than 5, then you can break it. But still, it will comes out of this for loop, in the for loop, and it will pick up the second customer in the outer for loop and will execute it. That is how we have seen a practical example. With respect to while, the same logic, the only difference is the syntax, right? Whatever the logic you can implement in for loop, you can implement the same thing in while. The same way how you are using the break, you can use the same thing in while also the same. Do while also same. The only difference is in the do, partially it will execute at least once. That's the only difference. And with respect to switch case, we are seeing as long as the condition is matching with respect to switch, then the corresponding case will be getting executed. If you don't use break statement in each case, so then there is no use of this logic. Basically, it will execute the remaining case also. So it is very, very important to use the break within the case block or case logic. And if none of the cases are getting executed, it will automatically execute the default. So default is a keyword in Java, break is a keyword in Java, case is a keyword in Java, switch, continue, everything is a keyword. So we have already seen the continue statement. Basically, it is also similar to break, but the difference is that you will use the same place where you have used break. Okay, you can use a continue. The difference is that if you use continue, it won't execute the remaining piece of code on the same execution. Instead, it will take the next iteration, but it won't get out of that particular execution. So it will stop only the execution of the current statement, but it will return to the next iteration, right? And if you see something like continue here, so basically you will be using continue and break statements in something like in your application based on my practical experience, where you will be using it based on, let's say, for example, you can say, let's say you are reading some file and you are writing the files and then you're doing some stuff for each records, right? And if you feel that like that particular record is not matching, let's say there is a failed record, then you don't want to process further. Then what you can do, you can continue so that it will come and take the next record. So what does it mean? So let's say you have one file and you have, let's say, record like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's say you have your application logic already built here. Okay, the for loop is taking care of it. and inside that you're using some for loop, which means like it is going to take for each record one by one, right? That is how this for loop works, right? So in the for loop, what you're going to do here is for each record you are doing some operation. Okay, so you're doing some operation, let's say process. You're calling a method called process of. Okay, which means it is going to take the first record and it's going to call this method. By passing this first record, it is going to process it. But before you process it, you're going to do some validation, right? Let's say you're doing some validation. So what you will do when you do validation, you're going to return this true or false, whether validation pass or fail. Only if the validation is pass, only then you want to process that record, right? Let's say in your record, in your file, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? And out of this 5 record, let's say you are having one variable, one record is having a, let's say third record is not a valid record. Okay, so your for loop runs for 5 times. You need to run for 5 times, right? Out of 5 times, only 1 and 2 and 4 and 5 you have to process it, and third one you have to don't need to process it. What you can do here is the for loop, you can call a method to validate. Okay, take the first record and do the validation. Then you can put a condition. If the validation is success, only then, or you can say if the validation is failed here, if the validation is failed, then don't process it, isn't it? So then what you can do, if it's failed, then you can continue, which means it won't, you can put here continue statement. The moment you put continue statement, then for that particular third record, it won't execute this line of code. It won't call this process method. Instead, what it will do, the control goes back and it take the next record, this fourth record. And then this fourth record, it is going to check the validation. If it is passed, then it is going to execute the process. For fifth record, it is going to check. But if you guys use break here, what it will do, 1, 2, it get executed. The third one, let's say this validation is failed, right? So when it says fail, if you want to break it, then it is not going to process this 4 and 5. It is going to stop at there because it is going to come out of this for loop at all. In case of break. In case of continue, it's not going to process the record, but it will keep on taking the next record and see. Is it clear for you guys? This is one of the best example I can talk about for using break and continue with respect to practical scenario.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah. And so this is what we have seen with respect to break. And we have also seen like when to choose one with respect to for loop and while loop. We can use either for loop or while loop. Both are same logic. Only difference is if you know number of iterations which you want to iterate in advance, then you can go for loop. If you don't know, then you can go for while loop. The typical example for using while loop is nothing but, let's say you're reading some data from the file, which you don't know exactly how many number of lines it will be reading, or how many records you will be reading. So you always have to go for while loop with respect to reading the data from the file. And also we have seen about advanced for loop. It was introduced in Java 1.5, and we have seen a practical example of how to write uh, advanced for loop with respect to integer array, with respect to string array, with respect to string arrays. Right? So I hope you guys have understood this one. Before we get lined up, anyone have any question?
No, Karthik.
Okay. How do you guys feel today? Is it like something like topic, or you guys are not able to follow it, or you okay to follow it?
I think we are able to follow. I mean, lots of things are there, but yeah.
Okay. And all the concepts, whatever you have learned, you are able to follow, right? You can use them, right? With respect
Yes. Because you covered all the scenarios with respect to, statements. So,
okay. All right. So tomorrow we will get into deep dive into caching framework, which is one of my favorite hero in Java.
okay.
Tomorrow we will talk about what is collection, what is collection framework, what is collections. Okay, and we are going to talk about arrays. All right.
Yes.
we learn some concepts tomorrow. So this is the real fun you'll be getting it in getting to calculation. This is one of my favorite topics, and also multi-threading and 1.8 multi-threading. Then we will be completed. Already we have completed like almost 3 sections or 4 sections, right? For Java, object-oriented, fundamentals of Java programming, and control systems. Yeah. Yeah. All right then. If you guys don't have any questions, then we will meet up on tomorrow and we will start.
Yes. Thank you so much for your time, Karthik.
Thank you for spending time in Java.
Okay.
All right. Thank you guys.
Bye. Have a good day. Bye.